Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Daytripper Photo Show. This is episode number 95, and it's a long time coming because we did one episode way back on episode number 37 that disappeared. It just gone. So we're extremely happy to have the gentleman who was on that show back on for this week, Mr. Claude Lecours, an amazing wildlife photographer and a member of our Newmarket Camera Club and a friend of ours. And it just so happens that Ross Chevalier, the photo video guy, is on as well. Ross and I had a TV show on Rogers, and we actually did an interview with Claude for wildlife photography on one of our episodes. So, Claude, welcome today. I'm sorry, Ross, what was that?
And it's a very popular episode.
As it should be. It was great. Of course, it was raining. We couldn't really do much shooting that day, but it's good times. Thanks for coming back.
Hitting the gazebo. That was what we did. Yeah.
Sharing the gazebo with the bums. It was always fun. Anyway, what have you been up to since you were on our show at the last time?
Well, photography-wise, as far as nature photography goes, I did a trip to Japan, which was amazing. It was you go there in the winter, so I went in February and did Hokkaido Island, which is the North Island. So that's where you get like the red-capped cranes and the stellar sea eagles. There's a hooper swan, which is unique to that area as well. So there was 3-4 unique items there. And then back on the mainland, we also went for the snow monkeys, or the macaques, as they're called, which have been featured on a number of TV shows. They're pretty awesome because they just come down out of the mountains and kind of sit around in these natural hot springs and do their thing. So.
Oh, that would be incredible. Well, thank you again for being on our show. We'll talk more about that and give some pointers on how to shoot better wildlife photography in just a few seconds. But first, also, Ross, I hear you've got a big thing happening TV-wise coming up shortly, too.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So, shooting this September for air in early 2015 is a new show on Rogers TV called The Photo Video Guy. We're doing 13 half-hour episodes, and very grateful that Bryan's going to join as a guest on a couple of them, and very focused on tips and techniques blended between photography and videography.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to doing it. I always have a good time when I do anything with you, so you ask and I will be there. Awesome.
Looking forward to it.
Cool. All right, so tonight we're talking about how to make better wildlife photos. Claude is going to give us some opinions and some things that he's learned through his experience, and as we've always said, experience trumps just about everything. You might notice that Gabriel's not with us tonight. I think he might be showing up at some point. He's got a big trip coming up tomorrow, so he's got a lot of packing and things to do. Plus, he just moved into his new house this week, so he's a little busy right now. So hopefully he'll show up. If not, we're still going to have a good time and go through this. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show this week, I just want to remind everybody about our sponsor, LensPen. These guys have been absolutely amazing, giving us prizes for the first, second, third place spots in our photo challenges, and also for giving us some gear that we can give away on our day trips, which we have one on Sunday going to the Tom Taylor Trail. So if anybody is submitting photos to our contest and they win first, second, or third place, first place this week will get the sensor cleaning lens pen kit with the blower and the pen and the cleaning cloth. Second place will get the little sidekick. This guy here is actually pretty cool for cleaning your cell phone, your computer monitor, other things like that. And of course, you get one of their lens pens. And third place, honorable mention, will get a lens pen. So thank you very much to LensPen for those prizes. And of course, thank you to Cotton Carrier for all the gifts and so on that they've given us in the past. And we look forward to talking with them more soon as well. Lots of cool stuff for all of our Daytripper family, community. All right, guys, let's dip into this discussion. Let's try and help some people out make better photos. Oh, remember, if you're watching our show and you have any questions, please post them to the Q&A app within the Hangout, and we will see that right away, and we'll be able to answer all of your questions during the show live. So if we spark an interest and you have a question about that, post it right there. We'll see it, and I'll ask Claude or Ross or whoever is able to answer the question. We'll get some pretty good results for you. And like, subscribe, and share. Tell the world that we're doing a fun show if you think we are. Because if you don't think we're doing a fun show, then you probably won't do that. But that's squirrel. All right, cool. So let's get into it, guys. Wildlife photography, the first thing you think of is everything is so far away. What do? Everything's too far. What's your favorite telephoto lens, Claude?
Well, for me, I've used my 1-400 for, I don't know, years now. More recently, I did buy the 500 f4, though. I finally decided, you know what, like, I do nature, and I'm more and more I am doing birds, and so a bigger lens was and with the 500 f4, you can put the 1.4 teleconverter on it as well, and it still works great. And that was the big advantage over the 1-400. I mean, you are set at a set length. That's the disadvantage of it. It's nice to zoom when you can. If you're looking at a bird up in the sky, you start at 100, you find it, and then you zoom into it. Now the 500, it's a challenge. It's a lot of practice to immediately, pick the bird out of the sky.
For sure. It's like binoculars that are just too far sometimes. You got to keep on putting them down and trying to find it again. Interesting. Well, that's great. I've got a customer who just picked up a 500 as well, Gary Ross. Gary. And he absolutely loves his. So the sharpness you get from that lens is incredible. That's a Canon L series lens, extremely sharp. You can pick out all the little hairs on any little monkey you'll ever see. So,
yes.
Well, I remember when you got that 100-400, you were debating between the 70-200 and the 100-400 and the teleconverters and this and that. And this is one of those experiences that I learned a lot from through a customer. Claude and his wife Rhonda came by the store, and we were trying a bunch of different lenses out. We stepped outside, tried them outside and all over the place, and checked out their sharpness. And it was a real test, and that taught me quite a bit, as I was still relatively new working at Henry's at the time. And it was awesome. It was a great experience for me as a salesperson to see how people really, really scrutinize and see how sharp these lenses have to be. And since then, the photos that I've seen Claude making, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Taking your time, choosing the right lens. You're not going to carry these things around with you if they're too heavy or they're too big. So making sure you find the exact right product for your need is key. However, when you're using these long telephoto lenses, it makes certain challenges. It makes it a little harder to get these really, really sharp results. What's one of the very common problems you run across using the long lenses, Claude?
Well, the biggest thing is, like you say, there's a level of bulk. So hand holding is a challenge. I mean, honestly, overall, especially done like a 500 f4, that's typically not a lens that people would recommend hand holding. They're pretty much expecting you to use a tripod. And yet, in all honesty, I mean, majority of my shots I've taken so far are all handheld. But what it is you have to use other techniques. I mean, I crank up the ISO, make sure the shutter speed is fast enough. I always have bean bags with me, like these guys here. My camera's always on a bean bag. I use that way more often than a tripod.
That's interesting to hear, because, I mean, Ross and I both really preach the value of a very good tripod. I don't know if we've ever really gotten into the bean bag.
Yeah. Well, especially with nature, like where you've always got a tree, or, I mean, you can lay down amongst the rocks. A lot of boardwalks, etc., will have a wood handrail with some width to it. So once again, those end up being my tripods in a lot of cases. And the reason why is because then I can react more. Going into something, setting up the tripod, I mean, in some scenarios that works fine, like you're overlooking a pond full of ducks and they're swimming around. But if you're walking through the woods and out actually, like when I was in Japan and I was out actually tracking a Cero, I mean, I didn't know when I was going to see it, and I certainly wasn't going to have time to set up a tripod and try and get the shot. It's like when I saw it, I had to lift up and go bang and get it, otherwise he was gone again. That sort of thing. So that's, from a nature photography standpoint, yeah, tripod is the best way to go, but the other tool in the arsenal is definitely looking at the solid things around you and using a beanbag to help kind of like brace it and really be able to push against something solid and use that as your tripod instead.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice. The beanbags make a lot of sense. You can make your own. It's not overly expensive. Your point is very interesting. Last week I was with a group of folks shooting raptors, and everybody, of course, put their big lenses, their big glass on their cameras and on their tripods. Like you, I have the 500 f4. The distance was close enough that I didn't need it. I was using the 400 f4 DO, which is very light and very hand-holdable. But it was very interesting that by, I don't know, halfway through the morning, the tripods had been completely abandoned.
Yeah.
Because people simply couldn't get the shots they want in the limited time you had.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, a tripod's a handy tool if you have the time and space to use it, but if you're lugging it around all the time, it's true, whether you need it or not, it ends up just sitting where it's all packed up and somewhere else.
Although, Brian, you did suggest the monopod, and I can't claim to have the fortitude of Claude to handhold that 500 for any length of time. So I find that mine's both a carbon fiber monopod pretty much constantly.
Yeah.
Well, I know, even just shooting our rodeo that we shot using the monopod was perfect. Doesn't take up a lot of space, and you can just kind of stick it there. You're not in anyone's way. But obviously, we're not going to Japan and climbing around in the rocks looking for monkeys and things. So it's a different application. I think it's good to know your tools that you have available to you so that you can pick the right one for the job.
Yeah, Claude, you shot the 100-400 for years.
Right.
I have one, and I'm always frustrated reading internet articles about how horribly unsharp that lens is. That was never my experience, but you've used it to produce just some incredible work. Did you ever find a sharpness issue with that lens?
No, I didn't. The only thing you keep in mind, like with mine, like I read the same articles, and that's why. I mean, Bryan mentioned all the testing I did, because I think I was really scared to go out and buy a lens and find out it was a piece of crap, right? But I had read enough articles and reviews. I thought, you know what? Maybe they used to have a manufacturing issue, but I think they're past that now. And then when I bought the one thing I found is you had to, opening up wide open 5.6. Yeah, not so sharp. You usually got to shoot at 6.3, and then there on out it's fine. So that was the one thing I found.
Yeah, because I used that for the first 3 years that I was shooting polo, bigger critters, but at a greater distance.
Yeah.
And I found, I was resolving horsehair with that lens. I thought it was just a brilliant piece of glass. But I continue to see, and I continue to hear, sadly, less professional sales folks denigrate that lens, and yet all the work I've seen from you prior to you getting your 500 was typically shot with that lens, and it's always tack sharp. And before the show, we were talking about how you don't spend a whole ton of time in post-processing.
Right.
No, I don't. No.
Before we get any further, I just want to welcome Gabriel to the Hangout. Good day, sir.
Hi, everyone. Sorry for being late.
Yeah, I explained that you've got a big day tomorrow.
Well, so we moved last weekend, and then tomorrow, you know how they say, like, buying a house is the best thing in the world and going to Disney World is the best thing in the world? Don't do it within 7 days of each other. So I realized that we couldn't find the safe that had all of our passports in it. So that's why I was late. We were in a mad, frantic spree running around the house trying to find the safe. So,
did you find it?
Yes, we did. We did just now. Like, here it is. Here's the key. Here's our passports. I'm going on the show. Sorry, guys.
I'm glad you found the key. We have a safe actually in our closet over there, and we haven't found the key for that thing in about 5 years. So I couldn't even tell you what's in that anyway. I think I got my grandfather's Bulova watch in there, and anyway.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Anyway, welcome, Gabriel. I'm glad you're here, man. We've started the show. We've done
Yeah, no, that's right. I won't be here for the whole show because I have to wake up at 3 in the morning to catch my flight. But I wanted to at least pop in, token appearance.
Thank you. Well, it's good to see you. All right, so we left off talking about the 100-400 lens, and actually, as I mentioned, Claude was one of those inspirations in my career as a salesperson at Henry's that gave me confidence to sell a lens like that. As Ross said, there were some people who come in and denigrate the lens, but it's good. It's a very good lens, and for the money you spend on it, it's a great value. And it's not ridiculously heavy for a big lens.
No, it's very, very reasonable. Yeah.
But with the big lens, don't we have to start thinking more about faster shutter speeds? And you've already mentioned cranking up your ISO and doing things like that. And it's a 5.6 lens at the far end. It's not super, super bright. How do you feel ISO noise really helps or hurts your wildlife photography?
Well, in nature photography, I mean, you're typically reacting to something, and you know, there's the animals moving. So fast shutter speed is pretty critical to get a crisp shot. I mean, even when they're sitting there perching, I mean, I actually purposely want a faster shutter speed because what I'm doing is I'm shooting bursts of that bird sitting there, hoping that I get it just as it takes off, because then I end up with a nice flight shot as well. So even for a stationary shot, I'm purposely shooting a fairly high shutter speed because I'm waiting for the action.
Right. I'm just going to mention quickly, one of the photos that we're going to see when we do our photo review is a photo from Martin Wiening, who posted a picture of an eagle, or a hawk, sorry, on a fence, and he took a series of photos that revealed something that we don't always want to see from a hawk. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. I don't know if you caught up.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So, you know, it's good to be prepared, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Now, what about the time of day and lighting and things like this? Like, we've seen some of the photos for our photo challenge this week, which we're going to get to. You can see that a big challenge was the time of day. And I know for a fact that when I'm out shooting wildlife, like, for example, I was out barbecuing earlier, and we have feeders all over the place, and the goldfinches are eating away, and all I can think is, where's my camera? Where's the shorts right now? I got to take a picture of this. But I look up, and it's not really bright. The sun's not really hitting the bird very crisp. I know I'm going to have to crank up the ISO. I just say, you know what? Just let the bird eat. I'll just sit here and watch. You know, like, do you find that happens often enough? Like, you take these big, expensive trips, and then you get there, and, like, what if the lighting isn't right? What do you do?
Well, I mean, that does happen sometimes, but knock on wood, because we go on photo trips, I mean, we're getting up darn early in the morning, and we're doing a morning shoot, and then we go home for lunch, and then we actually take a 3-hour nap, and then we go up for basically a late afternoon shoot. That's typically how a photo trip is set up. Like, we're shooting at the prime hours, basically.
What was that, Ross?
How civilized that sounds.
Sounds like something I'm gonna do.
A nap in the afternoon is a brilliant idea.
Gabriel looks like he needs a nap right now.
Soon. I think it was Rick Salmon. Either he was talking about somebody or somebody was asking him of how he gets these, you know, totally iconic images. And I think there was one, birds in the fire mist or something. I'm tired. If you know Rick Salmon, you know the picture that I'm talking about.
Cranes in the fire mist from Bousquet Apache.
There you go.
Yeah.
And somebody asked him at a workshop, like, you know, your work is so good. How do you get these iconic shots? And he says it's really quite easy. You go back to the place where you want to get the picture 23 to 45 times, and if you're lucky, you'll get it. So he just says that the secret to success is just going back again and again and again and again.
Do you have that opportunity when you're on these trips, Claude? Do they set aside a few days where you can go back just in case?
Yeah. Typically that's what it is. We'll find. I mean, we're going to places where we know there's wildlife, and so like when we went to see the snow monkeys. I mean, we saw all sorts of tourists come and go. They're there for an hour and they're gone again. We were there 3 days solid, and we actually slept in the little resort that's right there, so we could get up first thing in the morning and be there the moment the gate opens, and we were there when the gate closed at night.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Do you tell people about these locations, or do you keep these to yourself?
No, they're not a secret. I mean, honestly, like, you can, if you start Googling, like, photo trips for certain countries, you'll see, like, all the guys that lead photo trips, I mean, in reality, they're all going to they're going to a lot of the same places.
Where you went on Hokkaido, is that the same place that Martin Bailey does every year?
Yes, I met him while I was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I follow his podcast. He's also a terrific printer.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And just did, in fact, his he does workshops in his studio in Tokyo, and he just had one of his printing workshops last weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was looking at like his Japan trip because he was going all the same spots we were going, so I was kind of double checking, like, okay, what did he shoot? What lenses did? Because I was trying to figure out, do I need the 500 lens with me or not? You know, are we going to be that close or not, or whatever? So, yeah.
I guess that would be a tough debate to have with yourself. Bring a 100 to 400 L series. Bring a 500 L series. Ah, tough choices.
Yeah, just bring them all.
Go big or go home.
Yeah.
I guess
What does that do to your airfare?
Yeah, well,
Good question.
that's the challenge. Getting the right bag that actually holds it all, and then you've got your laptop bag, which is actually full of lenses, not a laptop at all. But you make it look as that's your laptop, and you got to spread it around, and then you wear the vest that's got a lot of things hidden in it as well, and whatever.
So there's more to being a well-traveled wildlife photographer than just having gear and knowing how to shoot. I mean, you got to know travel.
You got to know how to pack too, man. That's
Yeah.
a trip. And you got to pick the right airline. Some have a much different carry-on allowance than others.
And then you have to decide of going on a straight direct flight or maybe getting a flight that goes through the States and then back. Or like you don't want to have to do that if you don't have to because that's extra customs and that's a whole...
Well, that's extra security checks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So an extra checking your bag. So the chance of it getting caught that, it's actually 29 pounds, not the 21 that's allowed, whatever. So... yeah, we pretty much always try and do a direct flight if we can. It's worth a couple $100 extra, no problem.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Now, do you just forget about the long trips for a minute? Let's just talk about when we're home, you're driving around. I know, Gabriel, you do this. When you're going from place to place, you usually have your camera with you.
Yeah, right on the seat next to me.
Exactly. Is this something that you do as well, Claude?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You never know what you're going to see. I mean, yeah, you go to places, anticipation of things, but there's also just things that happen randomly. So, I mean, it's important. You always have your camera with you, and it's always set up for really the optimum settings for you to maximize the probability of getting the shot, right?
Right, so you've got your telephoto lens on, you've got your
telephoto on. The camera's always on. You never shut off your camera. I see people shut off their cameras all the time. You shut off your camera to put it away in the bag for a couple of weeks, but otherwise the camera's always on. That's another switch I'm not going to fuss with. And it's in AV mode. It's in burst mode. I've got single focus chosen right in the middle. So I can hurry up and grab that first shot at least. From there, I might start moving that focus dot around, whatever, if I have more time. But it's set up, I can react. Definitely.
So what I always suggest to people is drive around and take your first couple of photos in auto or something like that. Your auto would be AV. It's kind of how I like to shoot as well. And then when you have some time, you play around, then you flip it into manual maybe and try some different things. Is that the idea?
Typically, for myself, I do everything in AV with exposure compensation. I'm familiar enough with what's going on with the light and the animal. As the bird flies up in the sky, I'm going +1. So I don't want them to be a silhouette, etc. That sort of thing.
Okay, now this is a really good point. Sorry to cut you off for a quick second, but on the community there was some photos. There was one photo of cedar waxwing, and I made the comment, why don't you try to overexpose your photo? Explain that in your own words, what the benefit is of that. Please.
Well, the subject is the bird, so you're really trying to maximize its exposure. And when you look at the whole picture, quite often the bird is such a small percentage of the frame. Either you're going to go to spot metering, but usually I'm not. I'm usually on just the regular metering. So I'm actually bumping up the exposure to make sure that it's the bird that's exposed properly. Right. So in other words, the sky in the background is that much brighter typically. Now, obviously, there is some scenarios where that's not going to be the right answer, but like I say, as you shoot more and you recognize the scene in front of you more. And so a bird out on a branch with a sky behind it, yeah, like I say, my camera sitting beside me on the seat, it starts at +1/3. I'm always shooting a little over because I'm trying to push it to the white side of the histogram anyway.
Right.
And that's a really good point that you make, Claude, particularly if we're going to find ourselves in scenarios where we'll run the risk of our subject becoming slightly underexposed because the meter gets fooled. By pushing into a little bit of overexposure, we leave actually more detail on the sensor. And so when you have to correct, or if you, as you said, sometimes the subject isn't taking up as much space on the sensor as we might like, we have to crop in. We've got more and better quality data to work with.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good point. As Ross mentioned a few minutes ago, when we had our little pre-chat, unfortunately before Gabriel showed up, we were talking about your lack of editing. So you don't fall into that whole trap of going out shooting and then spending the next 3 days editing your pictures like I do?
No, well, And then mostly because I don't know what I'm doing. That's all.
Okay, now correction. You don't know what you're doing maybe with the editing, but you certainly know what you're doing with the shooting, which is the important part after all.
Yeah.
No,
And
okay.
yeah, I think the other thing is I don't spend a lot of time editing. I spend a long time just viewing because I shoot everything in bursts because I'm always trying to catch that moment. So when I come home, I've got 3 cards full of pictures. Like I wade through a lot of pictures to weed it down to okay, here's the 20 keepers sort of thing. So that's as far as I get with my editing. I weed it down and then I'm kind of ready to move on to the next shoot.
Fair enough. Well, you know what? You do well. Your pictures are incredibly sharp. I just opened up one of these guys here in front of me that I want to do a quick screen share of here. When you were on our show previously, I asked you for a few images, and I know you've probably made quite a few since then. I'm just trying to open this up here so we can get a look at it. I'm going to do a quick screen share and show the world one of your images. Here we go. I guess my screen share is not working. That's not a good sign.
Uh-oh.
Let's try this again. There we go.
Ah, there we go. Yeah.
All right, so there is... Well, now there's our show notes. Let's try this again. All right, so this is one of your hummingbird photos.
Yep.
Now, on a shot like this, so we have that kind of detail and that kind of clarity, I assume you're using flash for this?
Gosh, I'm trying to remember. This was in Costa Rica years ago.
So at least in the EXIF, it shows
okay,
flash.
yeah. It was on it. All right.
The reason I say that is the reflection of the colors from the hummingbird. It's not often that we see that kind of luminance and that kind of real fine detail in the color that you get on their feathers. Now, is this an image that you spent any time editing, or is this how it ended up in camera?
Nah, it's pretty much in camera.
Oh, that's awesome.
A slight crop, maybe. That'd be about it.
So this is where one of those examples where you underexposed it a little bit. Again, aperture priority.
The flash, it was really gonna, the flash exposure would have been at, I don't know, probably -1.5 or -2 or something as well. I would have thought, but.
Yeah, that was your 100 to 400. There you go, Russ. There's a nice sharp photo with the 100 to 400. Great stuff.
It's a great example of what an accomplished photographer can do with that piece of glass.
Absolutely. All right.
I also like what you did here, Claude. By choosing to supplement with flash, but underexposing the flash, it doesn't look like a flash photo. But as Bryan said, you've got some beautiful iridescence happening in the feathers, and there's that teeny catch light that's in the bird's eye that really adds a lot of spark to the shot.
I'll bring it back up again since you're talking about it still. Let's just give it a full screen. There we go. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure if you noticed, Bryan, but when you look at that image too, it's very sharp.
It's very sharp, Gabriel.
No, I'm actually really impressed with that. I was just being silly in my overly tired sort of way, but
that's okay.
It's really impressive.
It's just good to hear your voice, Gabriel. It's all good.
I can sing to you if you want.
Awesome. Well, I mean, there were a whole bunch of amazing images like that as well. So, I could keep going sharing your photos all day. Beautiful stuff. The photo of the polar bear was one that always stuck out in my mind. You actually shared this with our camera club one month, and the white-out washing of the snow with the polar bear and the difference in whites between the snow and the polar bear is captured so perfectly. For someone who doesn't spend that much time editing the photo, there's a lot to be said for the talent of capturing that in camera. We even commented on that during that camera club meeting.
So, Claude, one of the questions that we hear from folks wanting to be involved in wildlife photography pretty often, when you're out there and you're working in burst mode and you're shooting everything that you can, are you shooting in RAW or are you shooting in JPEG?
I shoot in RAW. Yeah, so my editing is I open it in RAW and I use the few sliders to kind of bring the color and exposure to what I want it. And RAW just gives me more leeway because it's just saving more data for me. It's not. It hasn't compressed the file yet, basically. So.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. Good question. Okay, so it's interesting. Aperture priority, not full manual, because we hear everybody say, "Well, I only shoot manual."
Sounds like a lot of work.
There's a few special cases where I'll shoot manual, but like I say, the camera sitting on beside me, yeah, it's in AV, ready to go. When I start doing birds in flight, and then they're going from the sky to a forest and the background's changing, that's where I'll switch to manual and really try and get an exposure of the bird. And then I don't care where he's flying, and I'm getting good pictures because I've exposed for the bird.
Nice.
That'd be the one exception for manual.
That makes sense. I guess the key is, and it's something that I've said before, and I think I've heard a lot of people say it, is you don't have to. Just because you're professional doesn't mean you shoot in manual. Because you're professional means you know when to shoot in manual.
Yeah, well said.
There you go. Okay, so where's your favorite place you've ever been to shoot wildlife?
Have you ever been?
Yeah.
Oh, God. That's a tough one. Well, I'm going back to the Pantanal in Brazil. So, you know what? That'd probably be right up there.
In Brazil.
That was one of the favorites. Yeah.
What is there to see there?
That's one of the only places in the world where you can basically be guaranteed to see jaguars.
Oh.
Yeah. So when we went last year, I guess it was a year, yeah, about a year ago, we went in the fall, and we saw 9 while we were there. We were there for 10 days. And I was just, they're stunning animals. But the other thing in Brazil is like the amount of beautiful birds. I mean, it was very Costa Rica-like that way. So there were lots of birds and a lot of different animals as well. You got the capybaras and the amount of caiman or the like a crocodile / alligator, the South American ones. So there was lots and lots of wildlife, lots to see and do.
Very cool. I've never even thought of Brazil as a destination like that. If anybody's watching right now and they have any questions for Claude, Ross, Gabriel, or myself, please feel free to post them in the Q&A. We've still got the Q&A app open. So far, I haven't had too much chatter going on there, but that's okay. We've got our viewers tuning in. So hello to everybody who's watching, and thank you very much for watching. As soon as this show is over, if all goes well, it will upload to YouTube, and you'll be able to watch it afterward. And I say if all is well, of course, for obvious reasons. Thankfully, Claude agreed to come back on the show, even though it's still deleted the first time, which I'm still bitter about.
Okay, if it happens this time as well, it's him, not Google.
Second and last time Claude comes on the show. Not good.
Even when he's exhausted, Gabriel will always stand up and take one for the Google.
Yeah, when Trish said we're going on vacation, I'm like, oh, cool, we're going to the Google head office? Apparently, that's not her idea about vacation.
Oh, you had your opportunity to go to the one in
last
Toronto.
vacation together.
Sorry, what was that, Ross?
Might be your last vacation together.
This is actually our first. I mean, we went on our honeymoon and we've gone camping and stuff, but we've never gone on like a trip together. And we've only been together 16 years, so why would we? But yeah, this is kind of a big deal. We've never been on vacation together.
Let me just tell you, knowing your son and his age, comfortable shoes at Disney World.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna be tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is huge.
I promise you.
The real estate agent, not the real estate agent, the travel agent was talking to Trish. She said to get an idea for Disneyland, it's the size of Ottawa. Apparently, it's literally the size of Ottawa. So that'll be fun.
Disneyland or Disney World are you going to? Florida or California?
Florida.
Disney World.
World. Okay.
Cool. Just to be sure, so everybody knows where to find you, right?
Yeah. The nice thing is, while I'm away, I'm having new floors put in my house. I'm getting some painting done, some plumbing done, and my mechanic's fixing my car. I'm going to come back and everything's going to be done.
That's awesome.
not to take us away from the show, Gabe, did you guys buy the line jumper passes for Disney World?
No, but it is something that we're still looking at because we've heard just recently that they're really worth it.
For what it's worth, unless you like standing in a cattle corral for 2 hours for one ride.
In 33-degree weather.
And 90% humidity in August.
Yeah.
Consider the line jumper thing. It's worth every penny.
Okay. All right. I'll mention it to Trish tomorrow. We'll see if we can add that.
Yes.
And wear lots of sunblock.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, back
to the show. Sorry.
Because I have a question for Claude. We talked about this a few seconds ago. Or not seconds, it's been minutes. You talked about your lack of social media and how you've changed your approach to Flickr.
Yeah.
Because Flickr was a big thing for you for a very long time.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed it. It was what I got out of it, and it's funny. I went into it thinking like, oh yeah, I'm gonna share photos, I'm gonna get feedback, whatever. I didn't get as much of that as I thought. But what I did discover and what I did get is I made a lot of contacts like all around the world basically. And so now when I was going to Cape Cod, I started looking at my contacts. Oh, look at that! Here's so and so in Boston area. So. And I noticed that she had taken pictures in Cape Cod, whatever. So I'd start emailing her, just asking her about, hey, I'm going for holiday down there. But, do you have any suggestions on where I might, go take my camera and take some pictures, whatever? And I did that for several locations. And really, 9 times out of 10, what would happen is, A, the person would offer you all sorts of advice, but B, they'd go, well, you know what? You're down here on a Saturday when I'm off work. Why don't we just go shoot together? So that was really nice. That was awesome. Yeah, it made for much more productive shooting, basically.
I like that because that brings a human side to social media. I mean, so many people get wrapped up, like editing, in the social media side of the internet and forget about the human contact side. And you're utilizing it for both reasons. You're focusing on where you're going to go to and what experiences you're going to have, and you're talking to the people that actually live there to bring you into that real world instead of, you see the commercials for, hey, visit Hawaii,
right.
And it shows people on split beds falling through the crack. You get more realism out of the trip. That's excellent.
Yeah. Well, because the other thing is,
good way to do it.
Flickr could geotag their stuff, whatever, too, right? Which is really useful if people are willing to do that.
Can you explain that a little bit more? Geotagging? Can you explain geotagging?
Yeah, when you post your pictures in Flickr, one of the options you have is to geotag, like where you took your shot. So not everybody does that, but for the people that do, I would certainly go look at their photos, and I could start researching locations myself based on their geotagging.
Right.
And you go on Google Maps and get a street view and go, oh yeah, so that's where I'm going to be driving while I'm down there. It's like I was already there when I showed up in my rental car, basically. That's pretty neat. Technology is pretty fascinating that way.
Yeah, when it works in your favor, for sure.
Yeah.
I can only imagine following Google Maps while you're down there. Turn it into the Amazon River or something. All right.
Meet Carlos the Cayman.
Yeah. Lunch. Hope you got the photo.
Well, a lot of people don't know caimans get bigger than crocodiles.
There's some big ones, for sure.
Well, it's been great information. Thank you so much for everything so far. We haven't really got too many questions going, so we don't really have any answers to give out to people who are watching, anything specific. Gabriel, do you got any questions for Claude?
That's a good question. Nothing really pops to mind right away. But I think Ross might.
I'm getting a hint that Ross might have a question.
Well, actually, it's not so much a question, but at the Camera Club on a number of occasions, Claude has brought up his focus model, how he uses the camera and how he sets it for focus, that I think can be really relevant for wildlife photography. So, Claude, do you mind sharing that with the viewers?
Good point. Thank you, Ross.
How you set your camera up for focus and to trip the shutter and such?
Yeah. For nature photography, what I've found always works So I'm always in single point focus. So you know that grid that's on your camera, and you've got. I'm trying to show it here. It doesn't work. But for the grid, like I'm only picking a single point. Like I know with the 7D now it's got a mode where you've even got like a fine point within the single point. So for me, that's what I always use. Because in reality, the bird is such a small section of of what you're seeing usually. Like, and I want to really make sure the eye is the focal point. By using a really small dot, there you go. I can get the eye to be the actual focal point for the camera.
Now, do you set your shutter button to be how you focus, or do you pre-focus in some other
No,
mode?
always back button.
Maybe
Back button only, and the shutter is shut off basically for focusing. I've shut that right off. So that way I only focus when I want to focus.
Can you explain how that would work for most people then? What are they looking for on their camera?
The actual back button. So you're going to use your thumb to actually. That's the only time you're going to actually focus the camera. It's usually a custom setting. And
So,
the custom set, once again, I can speak to the Canon line. It's like it used to be when you turned on the custom function, you had to activate a back button to be the focus. Now at the 7D, it actually comes with an AF on button immediately, but pressing the button halfway, it still makes it focus as well. So you're going to end up getting lens creep when you're already set up for a shot. So that's why I said, like, for my settings, then I shut off the halfway on the shutter, and I only want the back button to be when it focuses. So I'm watching a bird in a tree, for example. I can see him there, but he's partially behind the branch still. Well, I'll pre-focus with the back button, and then I can just sit there and wait. And then the second he pops his head out, I can go bang and hit the shot and get it. I'm not pressing halfway and now waiting for the lens to focus in, focus out, find that focal point. It's already there. I just bang, I get the shot.
so you've got your
It
finger.
allows you to react fast, basically.
Right, you've got your finger on the back button and holding it there, and you've locked your focus where you want it, and then you just you rest your pointer finger on the shutter and just wait.
Right, exactly.
And as soon as you got the shot, bang, you take your picture with the shutter. It's already in focus because your back finger is on, and you're in continuous focus for that, like servo mode.
Yeah, I'm always in servo mode, and I'm always in the highest burst rate I can get from the camera. But in the example of where I'm waiting for the bird, like once I'm using the back button to focus. I mean, once it's in that plane, and I could sit there and wait for 5 minutes. Well, I don't bother holding the back button anymore. I just leave it. I wait. And as soon as he steps out, I just go bang on the shutter and get the shot.
Ah, so you don't actually have to keep your finger on there. You just
No,
get it.
no, you don't need to keep your finger on the thumb. It's just to get it set up, and once it's set up, well, then you're good.
That's the whole beauty of it. Like when I'm shooting a bride and groom, and I'm getting ready to get the first kiss, I focus on where like their nose or something like that, right, with the back button focus, and then when they move in, I'm already focused. All I have to do is slam on that button, because a lot of the times before I switch to back button focus, as they're moving in, the camera starts seeking again. When the front shutter deals with exposure and focus, and so then you end up missing a shot because sometimes it's dark and stuff. So it's fantastic for all types of photography.
Excellent tips. Very good. Composition-wise, are you always paying attention to what's going on in the backgrounds?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's something you get better at as you shoot more, etc. Looking at all four corners, seeing what's in the picture, etc.
So that's how you do it. You frame up your shot and then you just look at all four corners.
Yeah. I look all around, make sure. And I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, I wish that wasn't there, but so then I'll recompose slightly so I know that I can crop it out or something, for example. Because for the majority of my shots, I know I'm going to crop it slightly.
Right.
In order to see the subject more. I don't need that whole wall of trees. I want to see that bird anyway, so I know I'm going to crop some of that. So.
Excellent. Good stuff. Any other questions there, Ross?
No, I thought that was very important, and Brian, I appreciate you bringing up the focus mode between whether it's set up for one shot or continuous, because different cameras have different settings. So, Claude, you said you're shooting a 7D.
Yeah.
In the 7D, it's called AI Servo.
AI Servo. Yeah.
It may be different on different cameras, In Nikon, you call that just continuous, right, Brian?
Exactly. Nikon's continuous or single shot, and Canon is servo or one shot.
Yeah, depending on the model.
Yeah.
Like I don't have servo as an option. I have continuous or one shot.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Gabriel, what is it on a 5D?
Same thing.
Servo and
Yeah.
Continuous and one shot?
Yeah, and that's why going from the 5D to the from the 7D to the 5D, except for the fact that they changed the zoom button, was a very easy transition.
It's actually interesting that we're talking about this. Byron just spoke up and says this is incredibly helpful. He hates missing shots using the shutter button to focus. And that's pretty much what happens, isn't it? You're sitting there with the shutter.
I know I've heard in podcasts a fair amount of wildlife photographers because Canon had back button focus for a long time before Nikon did. And I've heard of several photographers that switched from Nikon to Canon just for that feature. And then after about 3 years, Nikon came out with it. So it's for wildlife and for action like weddings and stuff. It's an incredibly important feature.
And just to kind of quickly cover that point, on the Nikon cameras, the D700, D800, and some of the higher end models they have a separate AF on button on the back that's dedicated for this. On cameras like the D7100, 7000, they have AEL and AFL. And you program that to do your autofocus lock, and therefore that becomes your back focus button. Sometimes, like I remember on the D600, if you program that to be, or even on the 7100, if you program that to be your autofocus lock, then that front button sometimes has some glitchy, weird things going on. So get used to it. When you program this and you set everything up, make sure you go out there and you practice, because Claude didn't get to be as good as he is since yesterday. Like, how long have you been shooting now? Like I know on our TV show we talked about your backstory and how you were raised. There was trapping in your family and things like that. So you've always been somewhat tuned into nature. But as photographer,
as a photographer, it was what was that? I think it was 1990. It was 96. No, it was later than that.
So
yeah, but it's been since around 2000 anyway, for sure.
Not forever, but you've put a lot of time into doing it.
Yeah.
It's important, You've got to try things out. I always have customers coming into the store and buying a camera a day before their trip. And then, then I get emails and phone calls like, Brian, my camera's not working. What do I do? You buy it 3 months ahead of time. And
never buy a new toy on the way to a shoot.
Read the manual.
I had that on my previous trip. A woman was there with her point and shoot, and she was going, "Oh, do you know how to use this?" And it's like, not my camera, I mean, I looked at it and did the best I could, but she had bought this camera for this trip in Japan, and meanwhile had no idea how to use it yet.
Oh, that is just scary.
That's crazy.
It is.
Well, yes, ma'am, I do. You take it away and you throw it to the snow monkeys.
Oh, those photos. Was it snow monkeys that did that photo?
No, it wasn't snow monkeys. That was in Thailand, where that photographer can't even get the rights to the photo out of his own camera.
Yeah, because the monkey grabbed the camera and took the photo. Hilarious.
The monkey is not according to the government, latest I heard is because the monkey is not sentient or is not a real being or something stupid like this, the rights go to the government of the country.
Oh, my God.
So not the owner of the camera.
Yeah, more like the owner of the monkey.
Oh my God!
What a load of poop.
So just note to self, Claude, when in Japan or in anywhere you go, Brazil, make sure you don't let go of that camera.
Right.
But there is the picture, that picture of the snow monkey that got his hands on the iPhone. Have you seen that one?
No.
Oh, okay, I'll pull that up and do a quick screen share. It's really good.
All right. Well, while you're doing that, I'm going to quickly just mention. Excellent information, Claude. Thank you so much, and for everybody for asking these great questions. We have our photo challenge that we're going to go through in just a minute. And again, we just want to thank LensPen. And do you use a LensPen, Claude?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah.
So they're awesome. You just make sure that you keep your lenses clean, because if they're not clean, you end up with spots all over the place, and you have trouble with focusing. And it's just one more thing in your kit that would help. All right. What do you have there, Gabriel?
Yeah, this is the one. Here, one of the snow monkeys had somehow gotten his hands on one of the photographer's iPhones, and so there's a few pictures of it. Sort of investigating it and trying to figure out what it is.
I have a hunch that phone is not operational.
I have a hunch that it isn't operational either, but yeah, you look at that. Yeah, that looks like any kid in front of an iPad or something like that. It's like, yeah, okay, all right, okay. This one picture, if I didn't believe before, I believe in evolution now. We are not that far away.
You can sense the intelligence of the monkey because he's giving the photographer the finger. He's like, don't take my picture, yo. I'm playing with my phone. Anyway.
I didn't know that's how snow monkeys talk.
They say yo.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yo.
Good.
G.
Who knew?
It's a better picture.
All right, before we get too silly and Claude just signs out, let's get into our photo challenge. Gabriel, are you able to stick around for a little while to do a screen share for this?
Or
do you want me to?
I would love to, but like I said, I'm up at 3.
All right, I'll do the screen share.
Okay, thanks. I'll just hop out now before you guys get into this.
All right.
I was really looking forward to being there for the whole show, but I'll have internet access in Florida, so I'm looking forward to listening to what Claude had to say about wildlife photography and maybe use some of the tips and tricks while I'm there.
And while you're still here, I'm just going to let all of our viewers know there will not be a show next week. Next week we're going to take a week off. Gabriel's going to be in Florida. I'm going to be on date night.
I thought I was going to try and do it from Florida.
You would actually be at Disney World and want to do the show.
It's at nighttime, right?
All right.
There are
I'll
fireworks at night. Gabriel?
Yeah.
We're only going to Disney World for a couple of days, and we're going to Legoland, and we're going to go to some state parks and stuff like that. So
you enjoy your vacation. We'll take a week off. We'll come back the week after, and we'll have a great time. So just enjoy. We will. We always do. Anyway, thanks, Gabriel. Have a great vacation, and congratulations on the move. I'm glad everything went well, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Nice seeing you all again.
Nice.
Have a good night.
Okay, so I'm going to do a screen share here, and I'm going to pull up the images, and we'll have a quick chat about these. There were a few last-minute postings that came in just since we looked at our photos earlier, so my internet is going very slow. Oh, I updated my modem, by the way. Can you tell how quickly and fast my internet is right now? No? Yeah, neither can I, which makes me wonder. But, yeah, anyway, here we go. Beginning of the list is there. Okay, screen share. Dun, 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 dun. And share. So here we go. We're going to go through some of these photos, get some opinions, talk about them for a quick minute, and move forward. Let's see here. The first photo that I wanted to kind of show was Julie's, because my thought was, first thought, well, you don't really see ducks wet like this, do you? I mean, the expression water off a duck's back doesn't come from nowhere. So this guy must have really been whooping it up in the water. That's my first thought. So, yeah, excellent photo. Great shot by Julie. You can see she was using her 105mm macro lens. She just got that back from, well, she had one out for repair. This is the replacement for it. Going for a little bit of a slower shutter speed. I think she was doing that on purpose to capture the motion in the bird's wings. Yeah. And the way that she has it cropped, I don't know, for me it kind of gave it a whole Fred Astaire soft shoe dancing kind of vibe. I liked it. What do you guys think?
I like the lines in the back. I like the pattern repetition, how the diagonal flows. I do like the fact that the wings are blurred. I think it's more interesting than if everything was completely static. The bird's eyes and head are quite sharp. The black and white treatment is decent. It's a very nice photo.
Excellent. Anything to add, Claude?
Yeah, no, the sense of motion is what actually, in the wings, is really what makes that photo. And the black and white treatment actually makes it work, too, I think. So, yeah.
Gives it a different look than you would normally see.
Yeah. Went to f13, so you're getting more of that see more of the details of the ripples like further behind the duck that way too. So
it kind of makes me wonder, did she close the aperture down to get the slower shutter speed?
yeah, well, I mean that's the effect it had.
Mm-hmm.
She got what, ISO 500? So yeah.
And with a camera like that, she can go to 3200 to get 3,000th of a second shutter speed if she wants.
Exactly, but I think
I think they were good choices. Excellent work, Julie. Thank you very much for submitting that. And we'll move up here. And Rhonda has a picture of a fly. That looks to me like a deer fly. Not a huge fan of the deer fly. I don't know about you guys.
I like them best when they're dead.
Yeah, me as well. Me as well. Apparently, this was taken with Grant's camera. So.
Well, there you go.
Sony. Yeah, I think.
F1.
Oh, sorry, I closed that there. F1. I'm thinking this was a cell phone.
A Sony? Oh, maybe. Yeah.
No, it's an A. It says it's an A6000.
Right.
With a Nikon lens mounted on it.
There you go, right here.
F5.6.
So she had her Nikon f1.8 50mm lens on her Sony a6000, and she used an $8 adapter from Hong Kong to get the close-up effect from it. Very cool. Now here's a shot from Byron. This actually got quite well received by some of the folks in our community. Where does he say it's a cedar waxwing? And here, I'll just open it up and share that. Now, my thoughts on this photo, my first thought is it's a bit soft, right? And this is one of those examples that I was mentioning earlier, how sometimes when it's a certain time of day and you don't have all the light that you would need to get the settings, you have to bump up the ISO. And you can see that Byron had to crank it up to 2000 ISO to get the shutter speed that he needed. And it's a great shutter speed focal length relationship between these. So, you know, he got the right settings right, but without that perfect light, that's when the ISO had to be raised. And I think that's ultimately where the softness that I'm talking about comes from. Compositionally, it's beautiful, nice soft background, nice bright colors, and cedar waxwing, in my opinion, is one of the prettiest birds that there are. So that's my take. What do you guys think?
Well, I agree with you, Brian. I like the bird. I like the complementary colors in the cedar tree. I think that, you know, I saw that Byron earlier had pointed out that he thought that Claude's tutorial on using back button focus would be helpful to him, so he may have had a little bit of micro shake going through the process of the lens finally focusing and the shutter going off. I did take a look at his settings. He's certainly pushed the ISO, and he is at 500 mil, so there might be a little bit of micro shake happening here. What I don't know is whether or not he's cropped in much to make this shot, and of course we all recognize the more we have to crop in to bring the subject into more I'm going to say focus, although that's the wrong word, to make the subject more evident. We're going to lose some sharpness that way.
Right. Or any softness or grain that there is gets magnified as well.
Exactly.
Right. Any thoughts, Claude?
Actually, no. That was well said. And that's funny. That's exactly what I wondered as well. Because the cedar branches have some really nice detail on them, and like you say, that like I can definitely tell it's a cedar waxwing. You're not quite seeing the definition in the feathers, but I mean, if you cropped it a lot, and it was already a 500 millimeter shot, well, yeah. I mean, the optics can only go so far. So.
Good point.
That's what we don't know right now.
Byron says in the Q&A, it was a very overcast and dark day, and he completely agrees with the softness. And, you know, this is just chalk that up to experience, Byron. This is one of the things that the more you shoot, the more you realize the results you're going to get before you shoot. And I mean, there's a cedar waxwing in front of you, Byron. Take the photo. It looks awesome. You know, for me, it's something that I would shoot and I'd always love. And if you're submitting it for a photo contest, if you're looking for specific praise, then you might not get what you're looking for, but it's a great moment, and they're beautiful birds, so of course you're going to take the photo. That's awesome.
No, absolutely. You're going to make the shot.
Right.
And the other thing, when you're taking a shot like that, I mean, I've had it where he's sitting there for a couple of seconds. I'll shoot a couple of bursts of him, and then like for whatever reason, one of the pictures is so much sharper than the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it catches sometimes or what have you. So that's why with digital, I say don't be afraid to take a lot of shots because it actually does pay dividends.
Well,
So sorry, go ahead, Ross.
That's a great point that you make, Claude. I remember taking a class with Moose Peterson, and he, like you, advocates shooting in burst mode because by the time the third or fourth frame goes off, any micro shake introduced by you pressing through the shutter button has typically been alleviated.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice. Good tip. All right, moving forward. Now, this is a shot that Maureen posted. She posted a few pictures of these hummingbirds, and they're all great moments, but I think we all agree that this one here is the one that we all like the most. Would you guys agree with that?
Well, it's certainly the one I like the most.
Yeah, I did too, yeah.
And I think the reason that we all like this one so much is from the angle that she's shooting and the fact that you can see its entire breast and the nice blur softness of the wing. There's still some decent sharpness in the feathers. And let's pull this up here, 70 to 300 on the D7100 at a 400th of a second shutter speed. So, you know, this is one of those situations where a choice was made to capture the results that she got. And I think the softness and the blur of the wings only adds to the effect of the photo.
Yeah, I'm looking at the EXIF too, Brian. You know, and we're seeing just under a 200 mil focal length on a D7100, so that would be pretty much equivalent to a 300 mil handheld on a full frame. I note that she is pretty much wide open on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably what's giving us that, you know, the concentric ring bokeh effect in the highlights in the background.
Right.
I happen to like that the wings are a bit blurred. I would think back to one of the things that Claude said earlier that could help make this even stronger, and that would have been, you know, as Claude suggested, overexpose a little bit. And, you know, maybe I've had to jump the ISO to 200 or even 400, but, you know, see what's behind you in terms of behind the subject, as we see with the highlights, because there's some beautiful light coming through the wings. Tiny bit of overexposure, maybe 2/3 of a stop, would have brought up the breast feathers even more and given her a bit more to work with, I think. Of course, not being there, it's hard to tell, right?
True. Actually, Maureen was wondering what that wash behind the bird was. There's a line of white where I'm kind of drawing with my mouse that goes straight through the whole frame there. I was thinking it's probably a branch or something that's blurred out from the shallow depth of field created by the focal length and the aperture being open and so on.
That seems very likely.
Yeah. But excellent photo, and thank you so much for submitting that, Maureen. Excellent work, and I think this tip on overexposing and back focus is going to help a lot of people. Those 2 points right there alone. All right, let's move up to another one of Byron's photos, and this is the one that prompted me originally to think about the overexposing a little bit. With the lattice in the background, it is bringing in a lot of light, so it's kind of tricking the camera into thinking that it has to underexpose a little bit if you're shooting in an automatic mode. So by overexposing a photo like this, a chickadee specifically, because the black hood, the black cap, and the eye are so close in color that without bumping up your exposure a little bit, it ends up blurring the cap and the eye together. Now I'm looking at one of my monitors, you can see it quite clearly, the eye is very clear, and on another one it's a little harder to see, so it's hard to tell. What do you guys think about that idea?
Claude, why don't you go first?
On this photo, like, so he didn't actually do exposure compensation, did he?
Not on this one. No, not that we can tell.
Yeah. No, it doesn't, like going by the XF data, no. But yeah, like I'm surprised how sharp this is, because I would have thought the meter would have got fooled a little bit by the bright lights coming through the lattice. Because like you can say, I can see the pop in his eye, and there's really good detail on the feathers, etc. So yeah, no, it's actually a good shot.
I'm very impressed with how sharp it is, given that it's shot pretty much wide open at the 250 mil focal length on that the Canon 55 to 250, and it looks like it's shot. I don't know if there's a tripod involved. 1/125th of a second. You're running into the realm of camera shake at that focal length on a T3i, which is a crop sensor, and he's punched the ISO pretty hard for a T3i sensor, and I think the quality is really, really good.
It is extremely good, and that's exactly the point. 3200 ISO, it's very, very little grain, considering,
Uh-huh.
I think that's an excellent job.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move forward again. We have Grant, who has posted a slug. When the theme is wildlife, you just don't know what you're going to get. I was expecting to get pictures of kids running around. You just never know. So here's another example of that, a big old slug. Now, it's interesting. There's such interesting animals with all the eyes bouncing around and the slime feel to it. But it's neat how he got the difference in texture between the wood and the slug. I mean, you can really get a sense of the sliminess of a slug, I guess. I don't know if that's coming off in a positive way, but it's meant to be.
I don't think it is possible to come off in a good way.
Now, okay, so here we are, 30 millimeters. He was using a macro lens, and I think that's fairly evident that he was using macro. Very, very shallow depth of field with great detail, especially in the texture of the wood. This is on a Sony SLR A58. Very slow shutter speed, and this is, it's interesting when you're dealing with a macro lens. This is still shot at f13, so extremely shallow depth of field, even at f13 with that aperture closed down, really, really small. Great choice of settings, 1600 ISO, 1/50th of a second. I'm assuming a tripod was involved in this. If not, we have another one of those photographers that can handhold at any shutter speed.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Or he was laying on the ground and used the beanbag. That's the other option, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A Claude Lecours patented beanbag.
Yes. We're going to market those and sell them with the Daytripper logo on the bottom.
By the way, I did notice in the Q&A that Byron came in and he did say he was hand-holding that chickadee shot, so that's really good.
Yes. Yeah, that's incredible. Again, it's too slow of a shutter speed on that chickadee shot for that to have worked, so there we go. Byron's another one of those guys. That's great. All right, well, Grant, thank you so much for submitting this shot here. It's the only slug submitted, so I'm very proud to say that you did a very good job on this photo. All right, Rhonda, photo of wild bee. So here we are. Now the EXIF has been stripped, so we can't really get too much into that. But as Danielle says here, she likes it's a different point of view. And I agree with that. It's not the standard point of view that you usually find from a picture of a bee on a flower. Looks like it's kind of hanging upside down for dear life. Okay, now let me ask you guys this. We see every time there's a challenge for wildlife or there's a challenge for flowers or something like that, there's always a photo of a bee. What about the bee makes it so interesting for us to look at?
The chance of getting stung.
It's the danger. That's what it is. Yes. So for every good wildlife photographer, make sure you have your EpiPen, because you just never know. Now, I think the detail is fantastic, and we talked about it on the previous show when we were looking at some. When you get the pollen on the little hairs on the bee's legs and on the butt of the bee, it just brings on a different vibe as well. But as Rhonda says, it's very hard to capture. They just don't stop moving. So anytime you get a nice clear photo, you've achieved this wonderful result. It's a big moment.
Well, Brian, in fairness though, because so many flower photographs have bees in them, I don't think that bees are hard to capture. I just think you have to pay their agent enough to get them to sit still. They never miss showing up for a shot.
That's a good point. A little trick for those of you who want to shoot pictures of bees or any kind of bug type thing, it's not a bad idea to catch one in your hand, stick it in the freezer for a couple seconds, and then take your photos of it then, because they're a little bit less movie at that point.
Yeah, and do you do that with yellow jackets
Always.
or black hornets or something like that?
Well, there's actually a reason why you never see these photos from me, because I've yet to catch one with my hand. So
I get it. Okay, I just trying to learn. That's all.
no problem. When I do, you will see the photo on Google+.
Excellent.
Now, Maureen, I love Maureen. She just moved to a new area, and she's got all these new experiences happening to her in her new place, and now she's finding these bear prints.
That's cool.
So, good luck, Maureen. This is as close to the wildlife as you may want to get.
Yeah.
She made a comment how she might go back and try and get a little closer to the bear when she has her bear spray. She doesn't feel like her or her dog getting killed by a bear right away, which is pretty wise. Kevin, you've posted quite a few shots. We're going to briefly go over a few of them. You obviously have some very tame chipmunks, but there's one shot that you posted that I specifically want to show, so we're going to get to that in a minute. And the blue jays. Now, when I first started shooting making photos, getting into photography, first started at Henry's, the blue jay was one of my favorite things to get a very sharp photo of. And it sounds kind of funny, but the best blue jay photo I've ever made was taken with a point-and-shoot camera. So it's tough to get clarity, sharpness, color, composition. Again, blue jays, I mean, they're so fast in and out. They just streak in, they do their thing, and gone again. So to get some really clear photos of blue jays is a pretty fun feeling to get. The thing is, Kevin's doing this with a Nikon P510 point and shoot.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I give Kevin full credit because I have yet to get a good blue jay.
I've got to give him a lot of credit. This camera is in his hands. This camera is a gem because some of the photos that he's taken, like the chipmunk I'm going to show in just a minute, the clarity he's getting just is blowing me away. Now, the biggest difference, and I think, Ross, you'd probably agree with me on this, the biggest difference that you're going to get is on the computer they're going to look fantastic, but when you try and print these images, if this is what you want to get into, I think that's the biggest disconnect using a point and shoot as opposed to an SLR. Claude, you print your photos, don't you?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
So if you make an amazing image of a monkey or a bear or something like that, this is something that you can actually print and put up in your wall. When you start using a point and shoot, you end up going from 300 dots per inch to 72 dots per inch, and that generally makes it a little bit less sharp when you print, especially if you want to go large.
Right, yeah. Or that's the thing, you certainly can't print as large. Right. And it's a thing that you can sit and not realize for a long time. I know when Rhonda and I first started doing trips, she was still using like a Lumix, like a better point and shoot, but it was still a point and shoot. Right. And when we got back from Alaska, the outfit we had gone with offered up to like, oh, we'll each print you a print, 36 inches wide sort of thing. So I sent in my grizzly bear shot, and she sent in actually a landscape of the Alaska mountains. But they came back and said, oh, sorry, this is the largest we can make it. And it was like only a quarter of the size of, the prints that they had offered, basically.
Right.
That was the difference.
That's the difference right there. So keep on doing it, Kevin. Keep on shooting, gaining experience, doing everything you can to capture these amazing photos that you capture. If you decide that you want to start getting into print, then possibly you might have to make a change. But until then, don't worry about it. They look great. Moving forward here, you got some other chickadee photos. Chickadees they're cute, they're fast, they're hard to shoot until they land on your hand. And even then they're probably still hard to shoot, especially if your hand is with the food and the bird and your other hand's with the camera. That's not the easiest thing, but that's pretty cute. I don't know, have you guys ever had an opportunity to feed out of your hand like this?
Not a chickadee. Sparrowhawk, Cooper's hawk.
Right.
There you go.
That was a long time ago. We, when I was still young, living with my folks, one got hit by a gust of wind and knocked into the apple tree. So we, picked it up and fed it raw hamburger for 2 days.
Oh wow!
Out of the hand until it flew off.
Well, good for you.
Life.
Good for you. That's awesome. Yeah, well, I've not had the experience. I mean, in the backyard we've got the chipmunks that'll eat out of Shelly's hand, but they don't like me apparently. And here is another the photo that really shows where to use exposure compensation to the plus side.
Yeah, it's a great example of what Claude was talking about.
So if we look at the settings, shutter speed is excellent. You're getting good sharpness with that shutter speed. You didn't need to crank up the ISO. This was taken with the Nikon P510 point-and-shoot camera, which does have exposure compensation.
Yep.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Yeah, so press that little plus-minus button, crank it a 0.3, 0.7 plus, and it would make a totally different result with the texture in this area. Oops, not that area. This area right in here. So you're going to bring all that detail out. And if the sky gets a little bit brighter, so be it.
So be it. Exactly.
All right. Very cool. Thank you, Kevin, for submitting your photos. Excellent work. Great to talk about. And here we go. Here's the chipmunk that I was talking about, guys. I mean, I thought this was a GoPro when I first saw it, with how close it is, and how sharp it is, and how wide it is. That's just incredible sharpness.
Yeah, that's a very cool shot.
The perspective is fantastic. The sharpness is great, and a 100th of a second. I mean, who'd have thunk it?
Yeah.
So that clarity is definitely kept in place because the ISO is nice and low. The aperture is very shallow. This is shot pretty much wide open with this camera, and that's why the background blurs off so nicely, drawing focus to the front of the chipmunk's face and getting that eye nice and sharp. Well, we all know if you want to do wildlife, you got to get the eye sharp. Claude's already mentioned that on the show today. So beautiful, beautiful shot here. All right, let's see what else we got. Joseph. Now, Joseph was in the store picking up his prize from last week, and we were talking about all the different lens pens that he already owns, because he and his wife have been doing quite well in our photo challenges. And then he submits this. Now, Ross, you made a good point about this image earlier, why we like it so much. Maybe you can reiterate that again.
Well, I mean, I think we all accept that getting a nice shot of a hummingbird is difficult, period. You know, you want to get the body sharp, you want to get the eye sharp. The lighting on this really worked, but what really set this photo apart for me was that the hummingbird is engaged in its day-to-day existence. So its beak is down the throat of the flower, it's collecting the nectar. You know, I think it's just terrific.
Mm-hmm.
I must say, I love the lighting. The lighting, some might say it's harsh. It says flash not used. I find that actually quite surprising, because it looks almost flashy, or a flash with ambient light. So I get sharpness and blur. But it is, the high contrast actually makes it work, rather than a flatter lighting would have.
How do you feel about this one as well, Claude? I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I'm surprised there's no flash on that one either, because that's a lot of times a good trick for how to get that black background.
That's the first thing I thought as well. It has to be flash.
Right down, and the flash would be then therefore that's the only light you see exposed. But no, it doesn't mention the flash, so that's wow. I don't know how he did that.
Well, if Joseph is watching, maybe he can clue us in through the Q&A, or next time I see him, you can let me know about that, and then I'll pass that along. But excellent shot. I love the black background. I love the nice bold color, and as Ross suggests, you know, the bird doing what it does. Looks great. So thank you, Joseph, for that one. Now this one, I've never seen a fox like this.
Well, so Bryan, remember when we were at Muskoka Wildlife together, and we saw the red fox in its black
face,
in its black coat?
Yeah, they called it a silver fox, and they say that all foxes are born as red foxes.
Yeah. Well, this one's definitely a red going through that black phase, because you can see it in the face and the ears.
Well, this is Don Hennessy's photo. Don is an old friend of ours, and he does some great work. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I think this is down in in Prince Edward Island. So, because of the fact that the fox is been separated from the mainland for some period of time, we may have seen some local evolutionary push-pull happening with the foxes there.
I think you mentioned something about... okay, here we go. So this was an accidental wildlife shot. He had gone down to the beach to try and capture the sunset, and it was a few minutes late. Excuse me. He set up his tripod and was in bracketing mode. He started to pack up, and the fox was right behind him, 15 to 20 feet away. So I was in the bracket mode with a 17 to 70 millimeter lens. With the tripod as quickly as I could, he popped the flash and shot this while changing settings. As mentioned in the original posting, he scared it off and was watching a mother with 2 young children, 2 to 3 years old, just behind him. Now, while he assumed nothing would happen, he said he got this intense look. So, apparently it's a rather rare silver fox, which, as we learned from Dale at the Muskoka Wildlife Center, pretty much all foxes are red foxes, and then they take on this silver coloring. Did I understand that correctly?
That was my understanding as well, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Well, Don, thank you so much for submitting. It's always good to see images from you. You're a brilliant photographer, and we love your work. Now, this is the one I was talking about with the burst rate. How you take a series of photos, and you just don't know what you're going to get. So Martin was saying that he was expecting the bird to fly away. So he did a series of photos expecting to get the flight, and instead it flew something else away. Straight out its butt. Yummy. So anyway, he says he's got this series of photos, and hopefully he'll post them to Google Plus, and they'll make one of those Google Awesomes out of it, so you can actually see the bird.
Oh, thanks. Let's move on.
My comment you can see here is, ha, gross. But awesome. It's one of those moments that, first of all, yay, I see a hawk. That's pretty cool. And then all of a sudden, you capture this. That's a whole different kind of cool.
Yeah. But the bird must have flown like just immediately after that.
You think so?
That's usually what they do. I mean, in watching birds, I mean, that's the one thing I've learned is that when you see them go to the bathroom, I get ready to shoot because they're about to fly. They lighten their load just before they take off.
I do the same thing. Sorry. All right, now Jordan, I think you're pushing the wildlife challenge a little far here with this one, buddy. The wild snowbirds, he says. It's a very clear shot. Excellent sharpness, excellent clarity.
I don't think these are snowbirds.
No?
I think they might be thunderbirds.
But what did he say? Hang on.
USAF thunderbirds.
Thunderbirds, okay. Sorry. So, yeah, even still, they are some kind of bird with thunder. No snow. But, yeah, very crazy. Doesn't really apply to the challenge theme that we were hoping for, but it's still a very sharp, clear photo of mechanized birds. Is that a good way to put it? Maybe? Anyway. Sorry, Jordan. Let's move along. So, what else do we have here? This one actually reminded me of the movie Babe. Do you remember that? With the talking pig? Michelle Scott, a female duck, walking out from the bush, and I just expect to hear him talking as he's walking, like, come on, get out of the lake. This is just not fun anymore, or something like that. But, yeah, it's cute. Very cute photo. I have to say, there's a lot of ducks around. A lot of ducks. And to capture one that you can see a personality in and you can get a vibe from, I think that's a pretty cool thing, and I get that from this photo. So, Michelle, I think you did a great job. This was taken with your Nikon D100. Now, first of all, good on you for keeping that D100 going. That's a great little camera from back in the day. Does a great job, and the only downside is if you push the ISO too far, because it still used the CCD-style sensor, you do get a lot of graininess. So you can see Michelle kept the ISO to 200. Either she really understands her camera, or it was a nice sunny day and she didn't need to go any higher, which I think is fantastic either way. And it's just great that you share this with us. Have you guys got any thoughts on Michelle's photo?
Like you say, technically everything's correct. It's at 300 millimeters. She shot 1/500th of a second, which is what you need. Is that why she shot 5.6, like a little more wide open to keep that speed up? Maybe, maybe not. But either way, the picture really works because the duck is nicely focused, and yet the branches off to his left are all nice and sharp still as well. But then it just fades off into the background, and you barely realize that's another duck behind it, basically. So yeah.
Right. Good use of shallow depth of field, created by shooting wide open and zoomed in all the way.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Michelle. All right, since we're starting to get low on time, we got about 6 minutes left. We're going to breeze up here. Now, Doug is another one. Like you, Claude, he's one of those photographers that just does a great job getting sharpness and being at the right place at the right time. A little picture of is this a red squirrel?
Mm-hmm.
Cute little guys. Some people don't like them very much. I personally love them. I love the squirrels. I love all these little critters. So here you can see Doug went -1 exposure value. So why would you think he's going the opposite way of what we're talking about?
Well, looking at the background, my feeling is that the background would cause the camera, being so dark, it would cause the camera's meter to tend to overexpose. By going -1, he pulls the detail back down to establish the squirrel itself. And when you look at the whiteness in the squirrel's belly, that tells us that he's made the right decision.
Absolutely. I agree. Thank you. That was perfect. Having that darker background makes things go white. Having the whiter background makes things go dark. You have to compensate with your camera through your settings. Beautiful. All right, Byron has his picture here of the common red-billed gull. My favorite part of this photo, and I hate to say it this way, my favorite part of this photo is the comment that he made, but they look much nicer when they aren't in the parking lot of a McDonald's. I agree. They definitely look much nicer when they're out in the water. Great stuff. We're going to move up here to Steven's photos. Steven posted 2 great shots. He's got his Savannah Sparrow, and the sharpness on this is just fantastic. Color, sharpness. Now the EXIF has been stripped, so it's hard to tell, what he did. But what we can tell is this was actually shot back in 2012. So unfortunately, it doesn't apply to our photo challenge, which might change things up a little bit. But now that we're looking at the EXIF information, just a reminder, the photo challenge is for new photos, photos that we're trying to shoot specifically for the theme. So when we have something that was shot previous to that, unfortunately, it doesn't qualify for this challenge. This one here was taken on June 14th, which unfortunately is still not part of our challenge. So where they're sharp, they're clear, they're beautiful, and we really appreciate you submitting, Steve. Unfortunately, these just don't apply to our photo contest today, so it's just something that we'll have to think about for giving out the prizes. All right, and the last photo we have is a photo that Phyllis, Joseph's wife, shot at the Canadian Raptor Conservatory. Is that where you were, Ross?
Yeah, it is.
Was she on that trip with you as well?
Last Wednesday. So no, I think this was another day. She must have been on another day.
Oh, okay. They have great-looking birds.
No, maybe it must have been the 15th. Yeah, it was.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, she was out there with her D610, nice full-frame camera. With that 28-300, that's a great lens. All-in-one lens for a full frame from Nikon, does a very good job. And you can see, if we get in, wow, that's a full-res file. Getting really close here.
Mm-hmm. All sorts of detail.
All sorts of detail. Great stuff. That beak is so sharp. You can even see the little cracks in it right here. Hey, but bald eagles, do they actually shed beak material? Just a thought.
I'm not sure.
It's like fingernail material.
Right. So it just keeps growing, and they have to file it down, right?
Yeah, it'll come off as it wears off.
Nice. Well, great job getting excellent sharpness. This is a beautiful photo. Exposure's great. You haven't lost all the exposure up in its crown, up in its top fur up here where it gets lighter, and yet there's whiteness just above it as well, so there's very clear, distinct separation between those for exposure. It's a fairly slow shutter speed for the focal length that she's at, but I'm going to assume the bird wasn't moving around a whole lot.
If this is where I think it was, the bird would have been the bird was flown a fair bit, but this bird also there was a lot of opportunity to shoot it in a static position, and a lot of folks were shooting that from a tripod.
What kind of experience do you have with bald eagles, Claude?
I've done some set shoots, like you say, like going to the Canadian Raptor Conservatory or something like that. But out in the wilds, in Alaska, is where we went. A guide knew where a couple nests were, and we hiked up some cliffs so we could look down over the eagles. And then we waited, like, you got a few pictures of the chicks in the nest, and then you waited like all afternoon for the moment it would fly away and get some flight shots. And and of course it's the second you missed it or whatever. But yeah, no, in Alaska is probably the most eagle shooting I've done. And then actually last time I was in Florida, we did some eagles down there too.
Excellent, very cool.
Yeah.
I guess a really good way to get your grounds in, to get your experience in, would be to go to these places, the Raptor Conservatory. Of course, Daytripper Photo has our own falconry sessions that we put on, where we ask the Ontario Falconry Centre to bring some birds, and we get to get very close and have them fly to us, and all this great experience. The next time we're actually doing anything with this birds of prey will be the Y Marsh Day Trip on September 14th. We're going back up there, and there's a big, huge flight field for the birds, which is a lot of fun for getting birds in flight. But we don't want to take away from Phyllis's photo. This is a great shot. The turning its head and having the curve of its wing. The composition is very, very nice, and I love this photo. Great work.
Yeah, it's nice.
All right, well, that is the last image, so I'm going to stop my screen share, and we're going to go back and reveal the winners for this week's photo challenge. Unfortunately, we have to change one, guys. So
Number 2 promotes number 1 in my world.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
All right, so the third place prize. I'm just going to, since we had to change it on the fly, I'm going to kind of go on the fly here a little bit. Third place prize goes to Kevin's photo of the chipmunk up close. So let's see if I can do a screen share and show that one back here for everybody. Third place prize. This one right here. Share. There you go. Third place goes to Kevin Beasley for Chipmunk Up Close, taken with a point-and-shoot camera of all things. Very cool. And second place this week will end up going to yes, I see that. That would be perfect. To Phyllis for her picture of the bald eagle. And that was the last photo that we just looked at, so I'm not going to share that one because you just saw it. It looks really great. So Phyllis, you won second place. And first place this week is going to go to Joseph for his hummingbird photo. And husband and wife winning pair this week, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And congratulations to everybody for all of your prizes. So again, first place this week will be walking away with the lens pan kit. That way you'll be able to keep everything nice and clean. Second place will get the Sidekick kit, so you can keep your tablets, your cell phones, and your computer monitors nice and clean. Even LCD screens. Does a great job. And third place will be getting the lens pen on its own, because we all need these things. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being on tonight.
Thanks for the invite. That was fun.
Yeah, not bad at all. Just at the hour mark. So I think we're going to call it a night tonight. Unless anybody else has any questions, they can post to us right away. Otherwise, I'm going to remind everybody to tell the world about the Daytripper Photo Show. This is episode 95. We've been doing this for almost 100 shows. And I think, personally, it's getting better and better every time. And it's with guests like what we have on right now. the photo video guy himself, Dr. Ross Chevalier, here in full effect.
Hang on.
Oh, yes. There you go.
Now I'm in full effect, Lloyd.
I can almost see myself in your glasses. And, of course, Claude, thank you so much for coming back on the show. And thank Rhonda as well for helping you get onto the show.
Yeah, actually connect. Yeah.
It's excellent. It's always good seeing you, Claude. I guess I'll see you Tuesday at the Camera Club?
Yes.
Fantastic.
I got to email in some photo submissions. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Please do.
Ross, while we have you on the show, and while I just mentioned Camera Club, do me a quick favor and tell the world about our Camera Club contest.
Yes. This is the 2014 Newmarket Camera Club photo contest. There are 10 categories. Any member can enter up to 3 photos in one or spread across any 3 categories they like. There are cash prizes for the winners of each category. There's also a best in show. Sorry, there are gift card prizes for the winners of each category. Cash prize for the best of show, chosen by Mr. Weiss and myself. And there will also be a club vote with a cash prize at the September meeting for the best printed image, where we want to support printing. So,
absolutely.
Open to members of the Newmarket Camera Club. As Bryan talked about earlier, have to be photos taken after the 15th of May, 2014, to qualify. And we need all the EXIF data, obviously, to help manage that. And Bryan, if I could mention a couple of other things.
Please.
Coming again in September will be the Newmarket Camera Club Virtual Camera Club. Again, another Google Hangout enterprise hosted by Mr. Bryan Weiss and myself. More ways to deliver some value. On off nights, so not interfering with Daytripper Photo, the web show. And then last thing, if you don't mind, every October is the Scott Kelby Worldwide Photo Walk. And again this year, October 11th from 10:30 to 1:30, meeting at the Newmarket Community Center at 400 Doug Duncan Drive, will be the Newmarket edition of the Scott Kelby Worldwide Photo Walk. Please either go to worldwidephotowalk.com and sign up, or you can sign up through links posted on Google+.
I will be going to that one for sure this year.
Yes.
I missed your walk last year. I will not do that again.
Yes,
Very cool.
and this year will not be a long march.
It will not be a long march?
We will not repeat the long march to Aurora that we did last year.
Yeah, that was a pretty long walk last year.
Yeah, that was a long walk.
Ouch. Yeah. All right, well, guys, thank you both so much for being on tonight. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you, Gabriel, for showing up for a few minutes at least. I know you're busy. We really appreciate seeing you. Next week, as I mentioned, we will not be having a show. However, we do have a photo challenge for everybody that will last 2 weeks because it's a vacation. That's exactly what the theme is. It's vacation. So get out there, make your vacation photos. It's wide open for whatever you feel represents vacation, and post them to the Daytripper photo community on Google+, and we will talk about them on the show when we come back. All right, guys. Thank you both so much once again. Thank you to all the viewers that stuck around with us for this show, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you very much. Take care.
Actually, you won't. Good night.
Oh, yeah, not next week. Week after. Good point. Good night, everybody.